Welcome back to another episode of Tea After Midnight. Just a little series where we have some tea to keep it nice and classy, but I also tell you scary stories. Out of all of the folklore in the Appalachian Mountains, the topic of tonight's story is actually something I've never heard about. So with that being said, grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary Appalachia story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. My friend Tori found this at TJ Maxx and she got it for me, and it is absolutely stunning. This is Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night on a cup. Absolutely beautiful. So Tori, if you're watching, thank you so much again for this cup. It is absolutely beautiful and I'm so excited to use it. This story comes from Clay. Hey Savannah, my name is Clay and I currently live in the Appalachian Mountains and I have my entire life. Growing up here, we would always hear scary stories about the creatures and cryptids in these mountains. I remember sitting on the front porch while my granddad would tell us kids spooky stories to pass time. As I got older, I didn't really read too much into these stories as I just thought it was folklore. That was, of course, until a few summers ago where I had my own encounter, and I truly believe all of the stories my granddad told us. One story he would always tell us was about a booger in the woods. So if you don't know, booger is another term in Appalachia that's used to describe like a creature or a monster in the woods. He would say that it looked like a deer, but wasn't. He called it a not deer. The way he would always explain it made us kids super scared. He said that from a distance it looked like a deer, but when you got closer, there were certain parts of it that didn't look quite right, and that it would walk on its hind legs like a human. Its knees were bent in weird angles and its eyes set directly in front of its face, not off to the side like a typical deer. And again, I never really thought too much of it or really believed in it until a few summers ago. It was nighttime and I was driving back home from my parents' house. I have driven on this road many times and have never seen any animals other than maybe a rabbit. But this night was different. This road is very windy and it's a good ways off in the mountains. I'm listening to music with my two front windows rolled down because my AC in my truck was out. It was pretty hot that night, so rolling my windows down was the only option I had for fresh air. I get to a part in the road that was a very deep curve, and I started to feel really panicked. I have never felt a feeling of dread so heavy in my life. I'm almost through the curve when something hit my windshield so hard I stopped the truck in the middle of the road. I look up at the windshield to make sure there wasn't a crack, and thankfully there wasn't, but I was still pretty startled. I was thinking to myself that somebody had thrown something at my truck as I was driving. While I'm sitting there, I hear some rustling in the woods to my left. When I turned to look, I could faintly see glowing eyes in the woods that looked like an animal based on the height. But that's when the animal stood up on its hind legs and started walking towards the front of my truck. It didn't come directly in front of my truck, just walked in the wood line toward the front of my truck. The closer it got to the front of my truck, I could see it better because of my headlights. This animal looked like a deer, but it was definitely not a deer. It walked a good 10 feet on its hind legs, and when I could get a good look at it, the joints in its knees looked wrong. Like they shouldn't be bending that way. Its fur was mangy with a dark reddish-brown like liquid dripping off of it. I could hear it breathing, it was so close to me. And the breathing sounded very wrong. It honestly sounded like a person wheezing. That is the best way that I can describe it. I immediately thought I needed to get out of there, so I start driving off, but this thing starts following me, and it doesn't start running on all fours. It was running on its hind legs, chasing me. I eventually passed it, but I could see it in the rearview mirror on the road, chasing me on its hind legs. I speed up as fast as I can, but again, this is a pretty windy road, so I have to slow down when I get into a curve so I don't flip. I get around a few curves thinking I had lost it, when I look out my right side window and see it again in the woods, but this time it was on all fours, keeping pace with me as I'm driving. I really start to freak out, so I roll up all of the windows and call my dad to let him know what's going on. Luckily, my dad answered, and I'm explaining this creature and that it's running alongside my truck as I'm driving. But as I'm describing the creature, I see it dart off into the woods, out of sight. I finished telling my dad what was going on, still pretty shaken from the whole experience. As I've said in the beginning, I've lived in the Appalachian Mountains my whole life, and I've never had an experience like this before. I've heard some pretty creepy stories, but never really believed anybody. But after that night, I have a whole new perspective when someone tells me a scary Appalachia story, because I've been through one myself. When I got home that night, I thought about the story my granddad would tell us about the not deer, and how the thing that I saw looked exactly how he described. So I started doing some research, and from the best I can tell, I definitely encountered a not deer that night. As much as I would like to say that the folklore of the Appalachian Mountains is just that, I can't explain what I saw, and anyone I tell the story to can't explain it either. But now I just wonder if Granddad saw a not deer as well, and I'm really curious to know how his story went. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this. It might sound crazy to some, but I know what I saw, and I really pray that I never see it again. So going back to the beginning where I'd mentioned that I'd never heard of this before, it is true, I've never heard of this in Appalachian folklore, so this was definitely a new one for me. But I ended up doing my own research after reading this story because I wasn't too sure what it was, so I did my own research, and it's something compared to a flesh pedestrian, if you will. Bear with me, I hate saying the other word, so flesh pedestrian will have to do on this series, but it is very creepy to me. But the part about it being on its hind legs, like I've known deer to stand up on their hind legs if they're trying to like reach something out of a tree to eat or something like that. But it to actually walk a good distance, 10 feet, they said, 10 feet walking on its hind legs and then chasing after them on its hind legs. That part sends shivers down my spine. They're trying to go down the road and take these curves as fast as they possibly can without flipping. And the deer, the not deer, runs beside it on all fours and it's keeping pace with the vehicle. That freaks me out. That freaks me out that it was keeping pace with them as they're driving down the road. No, absolutely not. But Clay, I do want to say that I'm so sorry you went through that. And I wholeheartedly believe you. After doing some research and seeing some videos, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that that is something in the Appalachian Mountains. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them. You can share it to the email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. As always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the best night. I love you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!
If you listen to Relatos de la Noche, I'm pretty sure you've heard that you're supposed to listen to those stories while wearing a headset and not out loud. I've personally have experienced something listening to that out loud, but it only happened one time. I will say that I continue to listen and that scared me, what the fuck. I do continue to listen to the stories out loud. Thankfully, nothing else has happened. However, if there was a story to make me not want to do that anymore, it would be this one. So this girl says that she shared this experience with her boyfriend, her mom, and they did not believe her. Right next to her own bedroom is her sister's bedroom. However, the computer for the entire house is inside of her bedroom. So of course, her sister goes into her bedroom from time to time to use it so that she could do her homework or just things like that. There's a lot of times where they both need to use the computer, so they give each other a certain amount of time and just take turns. However, they both do this while listening to Relatos de la Noche. They both enjoy Relatos de la Noche, so they have no problem listening to it as they're taking turns. They have this little speaker that they have in front of a vanity where the mirror is, and that is where they listen to it out loud. So there's times where she's home alone and listening to this podcast, and when her sister gets home, she goes to that vanity where the mirror is and where the speaker is, and she'll lower it or she'll just like turn it off completely, and she does this just to annoy her sister. Sometimes her sister does this to scare her because obviously she's home alone, she's listening to a spooky story, and she'll go in there and just completely turn it off just to scare the shit out of her. So a few weeks ago, she says that it was around 11 p.m. She was in her room in front of the computer doing her homework. Her mom was already asleep and her sister was in the living room. That's when her sister walks into her room and is pressuring her to let her use the computer for like 5 minutes because all she needed to do was send an email. However, she didn't want to lend it to her because she always said that, and it would take her like 20 minutes to do whatever she needed to do. So she tells her sister no because she didn't want to lose the inspiration that she had because she was doing this like writing work, and she asked her to just give her 5 more minutes. She was almost done, to go to the living room and she would get her when she was finished. By that point, she had only been listening to music while she was doing her homework, and she thought it was the perfect time to put Relatos de la Noche. She explains that sometimes when she's listening to it, it lets her concentrate, that it's to the point where she's not even listening to the story. It's just like the guy's voice telling the story that's helping her do her work. So as she's working with Relatos de la Noche just playing in the background, she said that for some reason, it was almost like her brain just like switched and she started to pay attention to the story that was being told. The part that she started listening to was about this taxi driver that was driving and apparently had heard something get on top of his car, and he would see this like woman's face peeking down through the windshield. Okay, that was already scary enough for me. So for some reason, again, she started paying attention to the story, and she admits that she started to feel a little nervous, a little scared, and some may say that she was letting the story like consume her. That was also the moment that she felt that somebody had came into her room, but again, because his sister had kept bothering her and walking in and out, she just thought it was her sister. She said that she turned her head just for like a second just to tell her, hey, just give me a moment, I'm almost done, just wait for me. Within that second is when she saw that her sister was about to touch the speaker like she usually does to lower it or turn it off or whatever. But within that second, when she turned and looked forward, she then realized what she had actually seen. She did indeed see her sister try to reach for that speaker, but she realized that she had only seen her in the mirror, like the reflection of her sister, not that her actual sister was in the room, but was in the fucking mirror. She could also hear her sister in the living room at that moment, so she knew that her sister was definitely not in the bedroom, but she definitely saw something that looked like her in the fucking mirror. Fuck this, I don't really want to look at a mirror after this. She says that she gets up pretending that she had not seen that because she was about to walk the fuck out of her room. Yeah, I would run out of there. So she gets up, walks to her bedroom door because she wants to get out of there. She was obviously terrified, and as she's walking to the door, she says that she could see from the corner of her eye where something was still there in the mirror that looked like her sister. But by this point, when she's like looking through the corner of her eye, she says that the thing that looks like her sister is no longer reaching for the speaker. It is just standing there in front of the mirror, like watching her. She does end up telling her sister, and her sister's the only one that told her, hey, yeah, there's moments where like I'm doing my homework, listening to the stories, and she feels like the vibe changes in the house when this happens. Now, this girl says that neither her or her sister are using headphones or whatever to listen to them. They're still listening to Relatos de la Noche out loud. However, she says that it's only in the morning time. Can I just say, if this happened to me at night or in the morning time, I would still be scared. Like, what the fuck do you mean you guys are still listening to it after you see your sister in the fucking mirror?
Let's talk about scary rando nodding. If you're new here, hi. I just talked about some pretty scary stuff, and today I'm going to be talking about my best friend's experience rando nodding. Absolutely crazy, and she just told me about it. If you don't know what rando nodding is, it is this app that you put on your phone called Randonaught, and you set an intention to take you somewhere within a certain distance. You can set the distance and the radius and stuff, and it'll take you somewhere to fill your intention. Many of you might be familiar when those teenagers found those two bodies in the suitcase and they posted it on social media. That's what they were using. Anyways, let's get into it. So my best friend was out randonauting when the sun was still barely up and set the intention to, I think creepy, something like that. They start driving and they soon realize that they are driving on a gravel road in the middle of nowhere. There are wheat fields all around them because we live in the Midwest, and it's dark by the time that they get out there. As my friend and everyone in the car was like, this is bogus, a crow flies and almost hits the car. This bird got so close to the car that everyone started screaming. So my friend obviously parks the car because that was really hectic, looks at my friend M, who's in the passenger seat, and kind of looks past his head for a second and sees someone standing in the fields. Now, she tells me she doesn't know what it was and she wasn't sure what it was, so she never told me about it, but her instinct was to get out of there. So that's exactly what she did. She turned the car around and she looked one last time into the field to see if it would still be there, and it was gone. And at that point in time, she's telling me that, and she's like, well, I don't know what it was. And I said, if your body's telling you that you just need to go to be safe, it was probably something that was not supposed to be out there with you guys. The crazy thing is, too, that she never told anyone in the car what she saw, either because she didn't want to scare them. But that is one of my biggest fears living in the Midwest, is I'm going to be driving at night through a field or something, or on a road next to a field, and I'm going to look over and see someone or something in the field. I think she handled it perfectly though by not telling anyone, because if it was me in the car, I would have started freaking out. But that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Anyone want a scary story? Because this one's going to stay with you. So just be prepared. No, I always say this is one of the scariest stories I've read. But imagine this happening to you. Like, just imagine what you'd do in this situation. So it happened in 2014, and a man takes himself on an evening walk. He does this all the time, almost every night. He likes to get his steps in before bed. It calms him down after his work day. He does it any season, any weather. He loves going on his nighttime strolls. He says it must be about 9:30, and it's November time, so it's pretty much dark. He does his usual everyday route down some blocks, past some parks, and he's on a long stretch of road that he's walking on a path that is adjacent to a park. So as he's walking on the path, he can see through the fence the park. He says he usually sees homeless people in there, groups of youths on bikes doing whatever. But this day, he notices something quite unusual. And at first, he thinks it's just some guy that's really drunk. But he notices a guy dancing on his own. Not like a little, boogie. He's like doing the waltz on his own. So he's like got his whole body movement, his head's looking up, and he's doing 4 box steps. But he's noticing that every box step he takes, he's like taking a step forward. So he's dance walking. He's also moving very quickly, and he's pretty much dancing alongside this man while he's walking. But there's a fence and like some hedges and trees between them. He gets a funny, unnerving feeling, and he's like, if this guy's drunk, I don't want to be around him. So he crosses the road. He keeps looking back at this man that's dancing, and this man that's dancing is now on the other side of the path. So there's a road between them, and he's still doing this dance, moving quite quickly, quite animated. Eventually, when he turns to face the guy walking across the road, he notices that his head has not stopped from being straight up looking at the sky, but his eyes are wide open, and so is his mouth. Sorry, what? Just, ooh. The guy's walking quicker. He's like, I need to get away from this guy. I want to go home. He's walking. He keeps on looking back, and he notices that this guy's now out of sight. And he has a moment of relief, like, he's gone back to the park, he's gone home, he's left me alone. Oh no. He now notices that he's much more further ahead, so he's moving very quickly. He's crouched down, same facial expressions, like looking at the guy. The guy walking home is shocked. He kind of just stands there and takes a few steps back. The guy that's now crouched down on the opposite side of the road takes big animated, like cartoon-like steps, big strides on his tiptoes, very quickly across the road, so they're now on the same side of the road. It's about a car's width between them. This guy really thinks he's going to get mugged, he's going to get whatever, so he shouts to him, what the fuck are you doing? But he knows that when he shouts that to him, his voice breaks because of how scared he is. Then the creepy dancing weirdo stands up straight and just takes 1 step forward, and the main guy takes 1 step back, and it's like he's very briefly like animating him, like copying him. The man's facial expression changed. He's now got a really big grin on his face, and he's edging closer. The man shouts again, what the fuck are you doing? Leave me alone. And rummages in his pocket, tries to find his keys. This is when the man just stops, turns, and walks away. And pretty much so does the main guy. He's walking quickly. He's like, I need to go home. This is a really weird experience. This guy isn't normal. I need to get away from him. As he's walking, he keeps on looking back. He keeps on looking back, and the man has just stopped and is staring in his direction. However, the next time he looks back, he's getting bigger. No, he's now just sprinting towards him, mouth open, like a maniac down the street. What would you do in this situation? Oh, this guy just runs away. He says he chases him for at least 2 miles, and he eventually loses sight of him when he goes down like a back alley and over someone's backyard and up to an old apartment block where he knew quite well. He was essentially like hiding in this apartment block doorway, until, well, this guy was just gone or lost track of him. I don't know. He eventually plucked up the courage to walk home. I don't know how he had the balls to do so. When he got home, he lived in an apartment. He opened up his curtains just to check, you know, and he wished he never did. Because guess who's just dancing the waltz down his street? Yep. The person writing this story said that they never went on an evening walk again. Never did it. Even when they moved out of that city, they never went on an evening walk again because the guy that they saw wasn't a normal guy. What would you do in this situation? Why are people so weird? Honestly, I think there's a subbreed of human because some of these stories are getting wild.
What would you do if you did a ritual with a demon thinking that it would help you, and then you started waking up every night with something waiting for you in the corner? This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about a woman who says that she did a ritual to get some help, and something else answered instead. I did a ritual with a demon, and I wish I hadn't. This happened about 2 years ago when I was at one of my lowest points in my life. I was desperate for things to change. I'm not even saying that dramatically. I mean, I was tired and broke and lonely and in an awful mental place. And that was how I found it. Some late night forum post, and then another. And then pages and pages of people talking about rituals and entities and offerings and asking for help from things that were never supposed to help anybody. I know how stupid that sounds now. And at the time I convinced myself I wasn't doing anything serious. Just some weird little ritual from the internet. It was a candle, a few words, and an object I was supposed to bury after. I told myself if nothing happened, fine. And if something did happen, maybe it would finally be in my favor for once. But nothing happened at first. That was the part that made me feel safe enough to regret it too late. The first few days were normal. There weren't any weird sounds, there was no shadows, and no instant haunting. I actually remember laughing at myself a little and thinking I had gotten all worked up over nothing. And then the dreams started. Not nightmares exactly at first, just the same setting over and over. My basement. Only in the dreams, it was always darker than it really was. And no matter where I stood down there, I had this feeling I was being watched from the far right corner beside the furnace. I'd wake up sweaty and shaken with my heart pounding, and then calm myself down because it was just a dream. And then one morning I woke up in the basement. Not in my dream. Actually there. I was sitting on the floor in the dark in front of the furnace room door with no memory of walking downstairs. That is the moment I should have left the house and never gone back. Instead, I convinced myself I had sleepwalked. I had never sleepwalked before, but that felt easier to believe than anything else. The next few nights, I barely slept. I kept the lights on and I shoved my chair under my bedroom doorknob like that was going to stop anything. And I told myself stress could make people do strange things, and I was just stressed and exhausted and turning into a horror movie in my own head. Then it happened again. I woke up standing in the basement and it was pitch black. No memory of how I got down there, with bare feet on the cold floor. One hand already on the wall like I had been feeling my way down there somewhere in the dark. I ran back upstairs so fast, I smashed my shin into the second step, and after that I started hearing whispering. Never loud, it wasn't clear at first either, just little sounds right at the edge of hearing. It happened while I was brushing my teeth, and while I was trying to work in the living room, and once while I was fully awake in the kitchen making coffee, I heard something right beside my ears say, "Go downstairs." I dropped the mug, and it shattered all over the kitchen floor, and I just stood there shaking, listening for it again. But nothing. And that was what made it worse. It never stayed long enough for me to prove it to anyone. My friends thought I was losing it from lack of sleep, and my sister told me to go stay somewhere else for a few nights. And I almost did. And then I started thinking maybe it was tied to me and not the house. And if that was true, what was the point? The worst night came about a week after the second basement incident. I had forced myself to stay awake until almost 4 in the morning because I was tired of what would happen if I slept. At some point, I must have passed out anyway, because the next thing I remember is opening my eyes in the basement again. This time, I was sitting on the floor. I knew exactly where I was before I could see anything. That cold, damp smell and the furnace ticking, the unfinished concrete wall beside my shoulder. I didn't move right away because I could already feel something in the room with me. Not moving, waiting. I turned my head towards the far corner beside the furnace, and at first I thought I was just looking into a darker part of the dark. And then I saw the outline of him. An old man, tall and too thin, standing with his shoulders slightly bent and his arms hanging loose at his sides. And he was smiling. That was the first thing I knew for sure. And then I realized he had no eyes, just dark, wet holes where they would have been. And while I was staring at him, too scared to even get a breath in properly, he started whispering over and over, "Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it." Not loud and not rushed, but just steady, like he had been saying it long before I even woke up, and he was going to keep saying it long after. I tried to stand and my legs almost gave out under me. I stumbled backward, and that was when he tilted his head a little and smiled wider. And then he said something else, still in that same low whisper. "The house wants to be hotter." I ran upstairs. I slammed the basement door and shoved the kitchen table against it, even though I knew that made no sense. And then I sat on the floor in front of it until sunrise with every light on in the house. I left that day and stayed with my sister for a week. I did not tell her everything, just enough that she knew I was scared and not sleeping and needed out of the house. And for the first 2 nights there, I thought maybe it was over. And then I woke up on her basement floor. She did not even have a finished basement, just bare cement and storage bins, and a furnace, and one hanging bulb. I was curled up beside the stairs with dirt on the bottoms of my feet. That was when I knew it had come with me. I never finished the ritual the way that the post said I was supposed to. I never buried the object, and I never closed anything, and I never did any of the other stupid things people online swore mattered. I threw everything away, and that night I heard the whisper again, right beside my ear while I was laying in bed at my sister's house. "You asked." I still don't sleep well. I haven't done anything even close to that ritual again. I don't mess with that kind of thing, and I don't even like hearing people joke about it around me. And sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night and the house is too quiet, I still get that same feeling I used to get right before opening my eyes in the basement. Like something is already standing in the corner, waiting for me to notice it. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
So I've had nightmares on multiple occasions with the story I'm going to tell you tonight. This is a personal experience that happened to both me and my best friend Eva. So with that being said, grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you a scary story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. But before we jump into tonight's story, I wanted to tell you about the tea I'm drinking. The owner of Haints and Holler's Apothecary reached out to me and she wanted to send me over some teas to sample. She's an herbalist and she mixes her own blends of tea, and I just have to say this is the first one I'm drinking, and this is so good. So the tea I'm drinking tonight is called Mimic in the Mist, and I just have to say the names she comes up with, including the name of her company, is so cool. So if you're interested in different mixes and blends of loose leaf tea, I would highly recommend you check her out. I would highly suggest you check out Mimic in the Mist because this has easily become one of my favorite teas. But thank you so much to Sage for sending these teas over. I am absolutely loving them. You guys go over and show her a lot of love on her page. I'm going to tag her down in the caption below. Now for tonight's story. This story is a personal experience from both me and my best friend Eva. This happened when I was about 14. My best friend had come over to my house on New Year's Eve. This was the very first time she had ever spent the night with me. We did the normal things for New Year's Eve and watched the ball drop, but shortly after, my mom told us we needed to head to bed to go on to sleep. We fell asleep, but were only asleep for about 2 hours when I woke up and sat directly up in bed. When I look over at Eva, she was asleep, but then woke up and asked me if I called her name. I told her no, that I had just woken up, but didn't know why and was going to try to go back to sleep. No more did I finish that sentence when we both hear what sounded like loud footsteps coming up the basement steps. Let me set the scene for the layout of my house. My parents' younger brother and my bedroom were on the left side of the house together, along with the hall and the bathroom. Going down the hall led you to the living room and kitchen/dining room, then past that was the basement steps and my older brother's room. So if we were on the left side of the house and could pinpoint where the sounds were coming from, then they had to be pretty loud. At first I just thought it was my dad or older brother going to get something down there, but I peeked out of my bedroom window and my older brother's car wasn't there. He went to spend the night with his girlfriend that night, so once I didn't see his car, I knew it wasn't him. I opened my bedroom door and went straight across the hall to my parents' room, and they were both sound asleep. So I dashed back across to my younger brother's room, and he was also asleep. Mind you, when I opened my bedroom door, the sound of the footsteps stopped immediately, so no one would have time to run back to their room once I opened the door. I went back to my dad and told him that I thought someone was in the basement, and he said he didn't hear anything and that it was probably an animal outside. Eva and I went down the hall to my older brother's room just to make sure he wasn't home and that I wasn't spiraling for no reason. His room was completely empty. And while I was on that side of the house, I checked the laundry to make sure no one had been washing shoes or something heavy. Both washer and dryer completely empty. The dishwasher was also completely empty as well. So once I had narrowed down that no one else was in the house, we ran right back to my bedroom, utterly terrified, and shut and locked the door, and hid under the covers of my bed. We sat there shaking because as soon as I closed my bedroom door, the footsteps started again. I forgot that I didn't check the bathroom, so I had to run back across the hall to my bathroom just to double check no one was in there, and surprise, no one was. I am terrified at this point, so I stayed huddled in the center of my bed with Eva, waiting for it to either stop or for whatever it was making that noise to get us. The footsteps continued and got louder and louder, and then it started to come down the hall that was next to my bedroom, and we heard what I can only describe as scratching on the walls and a guttural growl. I am in no way, shape, or form exaggerating this. It sounded like a beast or a demon was outside of my room, clawing and scratching, and it was the most terrifying thing we had ever heard. And mind you, when I asked everybody the next day if they heard it, they all said they didn't hear anything all night. This persisted for at least an hour, so we sat there shaking. We were both frozen in fear and couldn't move. It eventually did stop, and we had no idea what this thing could have been. Eva brought her iPod with her, so we decided to open the voice memo app and record for the rest of the night, just in case something decided to start again. Somehow we both fell asleep, and when I woke up, Eva was still asleep, and she woke up about 10 minutes after I did. She pressed stop on the recording, and we listened to a good bit of it, fast-forwarding through most of it, just to see if we had gotten anything. But when I tell you my heart stopped about 5 minutes before the end of the recording, before Eva woke up, something whispered her name into the iPod. I kid you not. Mind you, I was the only one in my room that was awake, and I heard nothing. We started to scream and ran in there to have my mom listen to it. Mom thought one of us had said it in there to be funny, but I promise you with everything in my being that neither of us did that. Once my mom had started listening to the recording, she went back to the beginning and started to go through it herself, and she was able to hear some of the stomping and scratching that we heard. And when it whispered my best friend's name, she believed us after that. Eva didn't come over for quite some time after that, in which I completely understand. My whole family had encountered something in that house at one time or another of us living there. But this encounter for me has remained the most terrifying paranormal experience I have ever been through. So that was our personal experience. Any thoughts? I do want to say that I've never seen a face to this presence, like I never saw the presence physically, but I have had several nightmares since that took place, and every time I dream about that house and the presence that was in it, it always comes with a face in my dream. And the closest thing that I can describe this thing as is the Babadook, but that is genuinely the closest thing that I can describe it as. And I literally have chills all over me right now just saying it. I was gonna say, do you care if I tag you in the video?
No, I don't care.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add? They can't see you, but they can hear you.
Which one? Which story are we talking about?
There has been multiple. But no, the one where we heard the stomping coming up the stairs and the scratching and the growling, and then it said your name in the iPod.
Yeah. Do you remember that time your dad called you into his room? You were still living in the room where Reed used to stay, beside the basement.
Okay, yes.
Okay. You remember how there's the door?
Yes.
Well, I remember I just stayed in there because your dad just wanted to talk to you for a minute. I think you were talking about groceries or something.
Yeah.
And we had just shut the door because I was like, I don't want the door open. I'm scared.
Right.
And I might be crazy, but I remember feeling like I started getting this feeling on the back of my neck.
Uh-huh.
Something's in this room with me, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I remember feeling and hearing the door knob jiggle.
No, you're lying.
No, I'm not lying. And so I remember just being terrified, and I remember not knowing what to do. You know that feeling when you're like stuck and like just pause,
Yes.
and you can't do anything.
Yeah.
You're like, if I move, something's gonna attack me or something's gonna go wrong.
Right.
I just remember sitting there like praying, like, Savannah, come back, Savannah, come back, Savannah, come back.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah, and so I remember I took all my courage to like run and open the door and run that way because it was terrifying. That house was terrifying.
You hear it here first, right here. Is there anything that you want to add personally to the story?
Gosh. It was just real. Like, I've never had an encounter that real before. That surreal. Like, the scratching on the walls, the stomping on going up the stairs, like, just the overall, like, how heavy that house was with whatever paranormal activity was in there was just insane.
Right.
I just remember waking up and wondering, is someone in the house that's not supposed to be in the house? And then finding out that it was paranormal and ghost activity. And I mean, I don't know. We thought they were going to believe us that we were hearing these things.
Yes.
So we just turned my iPod on to record it. And then, I mean, it was several hours of stuff. And we were asleep here snoring.
Yes.
And to hear it, like, go, or whatever, whisper it.
Ooh, I literally, I don't know if everybody can tell, but my neck, like, I am burning up. Like, this is like, yeah.
It's real stuff. I think about it sometimes and I get creeped out.
Well,
like, open.
Okay, so let me tell you this. I don't know if I don't know if I've ever told you this personally. I just told them, but I don't know if I told you this. So I never physically, like, saw the presence, and was able to put a face or a shadow to the presence that was in the home. I never saw anything like that. We heard stuff, of course, and Jaron and Reed have both seen. Jaron and Reed are my brothers, by the way. So both of my brothers have seen something, and they both saw different things, but they did see something. But I never saw anything, but I have had several dreams, like nightmares, about that house, and it puts, every time I dream about it, it puts a face to that presence. And the closest thing I can describe it as is the Babadook. I'm so serious. I'm so serious, bud. And I didn't even know how to pronounce it. And I looked it up on TikTok. Now I'm terrified. Genuinely. Genuinely. Because I'm serious. With the tall, the face, the teeth, the long fingers. And, okay, so here's a little treat for everybody. I'm going to set my cup down. She knows what I'm talking about. The basement. The half wall that was right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in my dream, I'm standing in the kitchen. Okay. Kitchen, the dining room is right here, and then past that is the basement, right? The hallway that leads to the basement. You have to round a half wall that takes you down the basement steps. So in my dream, I'm standing in the kitchen looking down that hallway. Yeah. And it's dark in there. Oh God, I'm getting... Okay, so I'm standing there and looking down this hallway, and on the half wall, all you can see is the face of the Babadook. All you can see is it peek out behind that wall. It's like this, and it peeks out behind the wall, and it takes its fingers and wraps it around the wall like that to peek out at me. I'm serious, bud. Like, and that's... and but then, so it does that thing, like the whole, like, peeks around, then it just flies at me. And then I wake up before it gets me, obviously, but it flies at me and it gets up in my face. And it's just terrifying. Like, it's just terrifying. So I just got off the phone with Eva, and she said that she's okay with me tagging her in this video. So if you guys have any questions or things that you want to ask about in the comments, you are more than welcome to, and we will both get to you as soon as we can. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal, spooky, scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them, and they do not have to be about the Appalachian Mountains. You can send them to me at the email on the screen right here, or the email in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I love you, and I hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
If someone ever asked me if there was a story that I would want all of my followers to listen to from beginning to the end, it would be this one. These are the type of stories that truly scare me so much. Just wait till the ending of this. So this guy says that when he was very, very young, he had a best friend named Raul. He said that it was a privilege to be Raul's best friend because unlike his home life, Raul's home life was really amazing. Raul had two parents who loved him so much and gave him attention. He even remembers how Raul didn't have to share his bedroom and had it all decorated with things that he loved. He lived in this really big house and had all the toys that just kids would dream of. He even had the newest and most modern video game setup, so of course when Raul asked him to stay the night, he was happy to. And just like he expected, he had the time of his life in that sleepover, and it wasn't just like the toys and having fun with Raul, but even Raul's parents treated him like he was a part of the family. He remembers eating sweets, and they even ordered pizza, which was really rare in his own household. He remembers even little details like when they were gonna watch movies, they would let him choose the movie that the entire family was going to watch. He says that they would watch the movie and then they would go play video games, they would have snacks until they eventually would go to bed. However, not everything was perfect. There was just something about when nighttime came that was not good. He realized that something was not right the first night he spent the night in that house, and he was tossing and turning. He explains that what he started to hear was almost like if somebody was knocking on the bedroom window. He thought to himself that maybe it was a branch of a tree that was making that kind of sound, so he didn't even bother opening his eyes to look outside that window. However, a few moments later, he heard that tapping on the window again. He did pretend to be asleep while somebody was tapping on that window, but he admits that that really scared him, not knowing who was on the other side. He ended up falling asleep until it was morning time, and then he didn't tell anybody anything because he forgot, since he was dreading going back home in the morning. So a week passed and it was the weekend again, and Raul again asked him if he wanted to spend the night, and he was so excited that he said yes and completely forgot about the window incident. However, they had fun. They went to bed, he couldn't fall asleep, and somebody was tapping on that window again. However, this time, after knocking or tapping on that window and him pretending to be asleep, he heard something different after. What he heard was somebody attempting to open that window. And he says that they were being successful because he could hear that window opening. He literally stood up, looked at the window, and he saw when a hand pulled back and hid. He said that the hand was long with his fingers all weird, and that to him, him, it was like a demon hand or something. He woke up Raul, who also looked and saw that the window was open, and they ran to the parents' bedroom and woke them up. The parents were obviously very alarmed, went, and they didn't see anything. The window wasn't even open. The parents also explained to him that they had an alarm system. They walked him to the alarm system and even went as far as giving him the code because they wanted him to feel comfortable, and if anything was wrong or if he ever needed to come over and they weren't home, he could put in that alarm code and come inside. And of course that did calm him down, and him and Raul went back to the bedroom and they went to bed. And of course with time he completely forgot about that incident and he continued to go over to Raul's house. However, he does admit that every time in the night he would hear something. If it wasn't a tap on the window, it was something completely different. Unfortunately, he says that the sounds coming from the yard or from the window weren't even the worst of it. There was one night he really needed to go to the restroom. As he's going to the restroom, he could see the front yard of the house through this big window, and he swears that he sees a really tall, bald man just staring into the house. He said the man didn't have like any hair in his face, like it was no eyebrows, just his eyes, his lips, like he was very pale. So when he saw him the first time, it was on a Thursday. The following day he sees him again, but this time he is a little bit closer to the house. By the time Saturday came, he was right next to the window of that house. He did say that he thought to himself, like, why am I seeing this ghost? I cannot bring it up. If I continue to bring this up to the family, they're gonna stop inviting me over and they're not gonna let me hang out with Raul anymore. However, there was one last occasion where he saw this bald man. He woke up because he was really thirsty and he was gonna go to the kitchen and get a glass of water. He remembers that his grandmother told him about this like myth where if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're really thirsty, it's because someone has been observing you. Okay, didn't need to hear that within this story. I'm a thirsty ass bitch at 3 in the morning. Anywho, he gets up, he starts walking towards the kitchen, and at this point he knew this house almost like if it was his own. So he was just gonna go and get a glass of water and go back to bed. However, when he walked out of Raul's room and about to head towards the kitchen, something that was in the living room walking into the kitchen was surprised to see him. And unfortunately, he recognized what that was. The figure that he had been seeing outside was now inside of the house. The bald man just stayed very still, and he said that he just walked backwards, went into Raul's room and closed that door. And obviously he didn't tell the family anything, but he knew that this was out of control and very much out of his hands. The things that he was seeing were just getting worse and worse. And unfortunately, he would refuse to spend the night at Raul's house after that. He said that in the beginning when Raul would invite him over and he would say no, that maybe he didn't give it that much importance, but eventually Raul would invite somebody else and he started having new friends, and him and Raul just weren't friends anymore. Time passes and he says that when they were 25 years old, he ended up bumping into Raul again. They were so happy to see each other that they ended up grabbing a coffee and just sat down and started talking. He tells Raul that all of his fond memories were at his house and that he was so grateful that they were friends even if it was for a short amount of time. And he also explained to Raul why he stopped coming over, because of that ghost that only he would see every night. That is when Raul told him something to calm him down, but it was the complete opposite. That definitely did not calm him down. Raul told him the following. Yeah, there was something there at that house. That they discovered it a year after he stopped coming over to Raul's house. It was definitely not a ghost, but it was terrifying. Raul said that even his parents were like, oh my gosh, the kid was right this entire time and we had no idea. A family member of Raul's father knew that house very well. This family member only lived several streets away from them. This family member had severe mental issues and was supposed to be watched and in his own house at all times because he was dangerous. However, he had found a way to escape that house every night without being caught. And every night that he would escape, he would head over to Raul's house. At first only standing outside the house, and then eventually figuring out the alarm system's code and getting inside of that house. They even figured out that the way he got that code was when they had given it to him that one night that he was scared. They actually found him one night because the family was gonna go on vacation, but the dad forgot something at home. When the dad walked into the house, he found him inside, and this family member attacked the dad. The family member ended up running out of that house, but eventually was caught by the police. He was taken, but not to jail, because again, he had very severe mental health issues. And after all this, they found out that every night that he would escape his house, he had attacked a lot of people, ending their lives. Raul also told him that after that, he was never able to sleep comfortably in his room, knowing that the guy was so close. He had opened his window, he had done all of these things, until this family member did end up passing away 4 years after that incident. Even after his passing, they were to find people that he had ended and they never knew. So yeah, this is how he found out that he was never seeing a ghost. He was seeing that family member with severe mental issues and he survived. This is why this scares me so much, because I feel like you should be more scared of the living than the dead. The way that this could happen to anyone is what scares me so much. But anyway, what do you guys think?
Let's read another true and scary story. I was 14 the first time I learned that nature isn't always peaceful after dark. I went to a sleepaway camp in the Appalachian Mountains, the kind of place that is supposed to make you feel safe just because it's surrounded by trees and air. When I stayed on campgrounds, nothing ever felt wrong. I fell asleep in a bunk full of other girls to whispering and giggling, feeling comforted by the noise of people around me. Even when we were asleep, there was coughing, turning, and counselors walking past with flashlights. But the camp offered this optional trip, a backpacking trip. An overnight camping hike on the Appalachian Trail. Only 10 girls were allowed to go. I didn't know anything about the trail or the mountains or the things people don't talk about. I didn't know the history, the stories, and legends, or why people talked about that trail in hushed voices. I just thought it sounded brave and a challenge. The morning we left, we packed our food, sleeping bags, tents, special water purifiers, and anything we needed for survival. The backpack swallowed our shoulders, too heavy for us, like a warning we didn't understand yet. The counselors drove us away off camp and told us rules that didn't feel like rules, more like instructions for survival. I didn't question it because I was a kid. I always assumed adults always had reasons for rules to keep us safe. We weren't allowed to go anywhere alone, not even to pee. If we heard someone call our name, we were supposed to ignore it. We weren't supposed to look back. We weren't supposed to sing, whistle, or play music out loud. Now that I'm older, I don't understand how 10 14-year-old girls were taken into the wilderness with only 2 counselors who were barely adults themselves. Anything could have happened. We got to the entrance to a trail on the side of a road. No buildings, no signs, just asphalt and trees. They unloaded us in our backpacks and drove away, leaving us there like it was normal. The moment we stepped into the woods, the world felt different. The air felt heavier, thicker, like it pressed against my skin. Like the forest closed behind us and erased the road. The sound of cars disappeared even though we hadn't gone far yet. It was quiet in a way that felt intentional, like the trees were listening. We started climbing up the mountain. The sun was still high, heat sitting on our backs, bugs crawling everywhere. My backpack cut into my shoulders with every step, but stopping felt worse. We walked deeper and higher up the mountain. We walked for hours. As we went deeper, things stopped making sense. A single shoe on the side of the trail. Then another shoe, different size, different color. Sunglasses, half buried in dirt. Small bags. Pieces of people without the people themselves. It didn't feel like litter. It felt like evidence of something unfinished. Sometimes we passed other hikers. Sometimes we passed staircases. Real staircases standing alone in the forest leading nowhere. No building, no ruins. Just stairs rising from the dirt. We finally reached the top of the mountain right before sunset, and the view was beautiful and in a way made me feel exposed, like I was being watched from every angle. Everything stretched out endlessly, the Berkshire Mountains stretching for miles and miles. Our campsite was close by, so after a quick snack break, we walked there. We had a buddy system, so if we needed to go somewhere, we always had someone with us. Me and my buddy Kayla set up our tent together, hands shaky from exhaustion. We cooked with the rest of the group, we ate dinner, and talked quietly by the fire. The counselors kept reminding us that we had to be inside our tents before dark, like the darkness itself was something that needed to be avoided. No one was laughing much anymore. When the lights started fading, Kayla and I zipped ourselves into our tent. The fabric felt thin, too thin. I lay on my sleeping bag on top of a small mat, the ground hard and uneven beneath me. I listened to bugs, distant animal sounds, the air warm and still. I told myself this was normal. People camp all the time. Eventually, I drifted off. I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night. My first thought was something is wrong. It was dead quiet. There were no more bugs, no more animals, no more wind. Like the forest stopped breathing. The silence was so complete it rang in my ears. I heard nothing but these slow footsteps. I knew it wasn't anyone from our group. I knew that immediately. If someone needed the bathroom, there would have been whispering, flashlights, more than one person. There were no flashlights, no voices, no second set of steps. It was slow, like it was looking at all of our tents like it had all the time in the world. I nudged Kayla and whispered her name. She woke up, turned to look at me, and said, "What?" too loudly. The footsteps stopped. My stomach dropped. Fear consumed my body, and my entire body went cold. "There's someone outside of the tent. Hide," I whispered, and stuck my whole head into my sleeping bag. I made myself as small as possible. I held my breath so hard my lungs burned. Kayla did the same. The footsteps came closer, so close I could hear the ground shift. It moved right up to the tent, near the clear plastic at the top. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. It felt like something was standing there, waiting, watching for movement, listening for breath. We heard its deep breathing, almost like raspy panting. It sounded terrifying. I hope whatever it was too dumb to understand that there was 2 people in the tent if we stayed still. It felt like that moment lasted forever until it finally walked away again. I didn't sleep again. I stayed awake the rest of the night, frozen, listening, staring up through the top of the tent, scared it would come back. Kayla eventually fell asleep again, but I kept watch. About an hour later, I checked the time on my iPod Touch because I needed proof that time was still moving and morning was coming. I was playing a game on the iPod to calm my mind when a scream tore through the night. It didn't sound human, but it didn't sound like an animal either. It sounded like something in pain or something calling. I don't know if that was what was standing over our tent, but it sounded like it was really close to us. Finally, the sun came up and we all packed our stuff and hiked back down the mountain. More lost shoes, more abandoned things, like the forest was collecting pieces of people. When we got back to camp, Kayla and I didn't tell anyone because they wouldn't believe us. I don't think we could have explained it even if we tried. I've never gone camping again. I'm thankful I'm still alive to tell this story. Some places just don't want you there. A part of me also feels like flesh pedestrians have been following me ever since. I come across them everywhere in my daily life. They look like people, but if you talk to them, they're not people. They don't talk normally, or they can't talk if you try to talk to them. They stare at me and their gaze will follow me like I'm their target. I live in New York City, so I see them in Times Square and at the store and everywhere I go. I can't help but feel like something is waiting for me to come back to that town or those mountains because they didn't get me the first time. One of my only thoughts was like maybe this could be some sort of like forest dwelling creature like Bigfoot, but because you said that there are flesh pedestrians following you, then I have a feeling that it was probably something similar to that. Thank you so much, Jenny, for sending this story in. This is super spooky, and I am glad that you have never gone camping again because it's probably for the best. If you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can, and I will see you in the next one.
If you're listening to this story and your dog or your cat or your pet is next to you, go to another room. Go to another room. Do it. Just do it. Now, don't say I didn't warn you if shit gets weird and maybe your dog starts talking to you. Anyway, if your pet is still here, hi, how you doing? This guy says that he has only shared this story with a couple of people because when he has shared it, people think that he's lying, it's made up, or that maybe he just imagined things. The reason why he's also very comfortable sharing the story is because he has started hearing other stories from people who have experienced similar things, so get ready for this. This guy says that he got home from work very tired, however his dog Zeus was super excited to see him and started jumping up and down, which was kind of Zeus's sign saying, hey, take me out for a walk. He admits that he didn't have the energy to take him out, but he did because he cared about his dog's health and he took him to a dog park. He says that Zeus is very well behaved, so he doesn't have a problem getting him off the leash and letting him run around. He has never attacked a kid or a person, nothing of that sort, so that's why he's very comfortable letting him loose. Now he's like, please don't judge me. I know I shouldn't let him off the leash, but I promise I'm responsible. I bring doggy bags. Zeus listens when I tell him to come. He has never been aggressive, so, again, he trusts Zeus. So while Zeus was playing and running, he went to go sit at a bench, and he said that he notices that every time Zeus would run, he would look back, find him, and be like, okay, he's still here. Goes back to play, he would stop, make sure that he was still sitting at that bench just waiting for him. It was in that moment when a little kid came up to him when he was sitting at the bench. He noticed that the little boy was looking at Zeus and he was smiling, just seeing Zeus jump up and down and run. He says that the little boy turned to look at him and asked him if that was his dog. He turns to look at the kid and he's like, yeah, that's my pet, his name is Zeus. And that's when the little kid says something that shocked him. The little kid said, you know that your dog talks, right? He says that the little kid was so tiny he didn't want to crush his imagination, so he just nodded yes, like, yep, I know that Zeus can talk because, what are you gonna tell a little kid? No, he doesn't talk. That's when the little kid turned around almost like to walk away, still with a smile on his face, and he says, my dog told me that your dog was just like him. At this point, he was like confused, but also very curious. And he tells the little boy, well, how could you know any of this? And the little kid simply just said, well, why don't you ask Zeus? Cool. If he's the type of dog that talks, then he's gonna give you a response. The kid then says, because not all dogs can talk, they're not all like that. The kid turned around and left. He turned back to look at Zeus, and he could tell that Zeus was watching him. Almost like if Zeus knew that they were talking about him. And then when Zeus noticed that he was looking at him, he just kept walking and running like if nothing happened. Oh my god. When they returned home, he said that what that little boy said just stayed in his head. And he was playing around. Obviously, like, it was a little kid. He's not gonna believe that. So in a joking manner, he turns to Zeus and says, can you talk? Immediately, Zeus's attitude, mannerisms changed. He says that Zeus stared into his eyes for like a minute, and then he just turned around. He went walking towards his doggy bed and he just laid on it. Okay, that's cool, that's fine. Oh my god, I'm scared. He was like, what the fuck just happened? Because he says that Zeus is not this like serious of a dog. Like, he's always hyper, he's always jumping. The way that he looked at him, turned around, went to his dog bed and just stayed there, threw him off. However, he was like, okay, whatever, that was weird, but maybe it's just what that kid told me that's making me feel even more weirder. So he simply went to bed and he went to sleep. So again, he ends up falling asleep, and he says that he was deep into his sleep when he got awoken by a sound of something falling in the kitchen. He immediately gets up and with precaution walks towards the kitchen. He turned to see if Zeus was in his doggy bed and he wasn't there, so he didn't know where Zeus was. He thought to himself that maybe Zeus also got woken up, and he went to the kitchen to see what was that sound. When he gets to the kitchen, he notices that everything's in its place. There's nothing on the floor. Like, what made that sound? He has no idea. However, the strange thing was that Zeus wasn't in the kitchen either. So he called out for Zeus, and very calmly, Zeus comes out of this like empty bedroom that he has. He says that Zeus looks at him, didn't even get close to him, and just went to lay down on his doggy bed. Almost like if he was someone that Zeus didn't know or that maybe he didn't even care about. Anyway, following day, he goes to work, he gets home, opens the door, and Zeus is not there greeting him like every other day, where he's jumping up and down excited, wanting him to take him to the dog park. Zeus was nowhere to be found. So obviously he was in shock, and he calls out to Zeus, because at this point he's like, what if he's sick, or what if something's going on? So again, Zeus comes out of that empty bedroom, looks at him, and at this point he's trying to get Zeus excited. He gets his leash and he's like, look, you want to go to the dog park? And Zeus looks at him, doesn't get close to him again, and goes and lays down on his doggy bed. To him, he says it was evident that something was happening to Zeus, so he calls a friend who was a veterinarian, and he tells them, look, these are the symptoms, he's not coming, he's not excited, and his friend thought that maybe it was because of the age. He didn't believe that it was that, because Zeus's energy like switched just overnight. However, he really loves Zeus and wanted Zeus to be healthy, so he did make an appointment to see the veterinarian the following day. That day, they didn't go to the dog park, but he did go to sleep just worried about Zeus and hoping that it was nothing serious and that he was going to be fine. As he's laying there thinking about Zeus, he says that he could hear that someone opened the front door, and after that door was opened, it sounded like somebody was walking. He got really scared because he can clearly hear footsteps, inside of his house, and he hadn't fallen asleep yet, so he knew that it was like very real. He wasn't dreaming or anything like that. He said that he had a sword next to his bed, so he just grabbed that sword and quietly came out of his bedroom. The house was dark, but that he could still see that the front door was indeed opened. However, there was nobody in his house and not even the trace of Zeus. He honestly couldn't believe it, but he was like, what if Zeus opened the door and escaped? But he thought that didn't make any sense because the door was locked, like you physically had to unlock it. As he's walking out of the hallway, he then starts to hear footsteps behind him. He said that he was like in shock, but when he turned around to try to look, he saw like a shadow of somebody just run past him and outside that front door. He screamed for Zeus to help him because he was scared and he didn't know what to do. That thing passed so fast, not even the sword could help him. Zeus never came. He never came. He wasn't in that empty bedroom. He wasn't laying on his dog bed. Zeus never came out. So he immediately closes the front door and locks it up. After locking it, he stepped away from the door, and that is when he started hearing something trying to open that door back up. He said that he noticed when they couldn't open it back up, so then they started kicking the door. That is when he screams like, "What do you want? Who are you? What do you want from me? If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." And the thing that he heard back was somebody laughing, almost like laughing at him. And that is when he heard a voice telling him,
"Alfredo, you wanted to know if I could talk. The answer is yes. And not just that, I can do so many other things."
And then it banged on the door, and he heard when the steps were walking away from his house with a very terrifying laughter. Everything stayed calm. However, he was shaking with fear, and he stayed up the entire night until morning time, and that's when he finally got the courage to open that front door. The door was full of scratch marks. Ever since that day, Zeus disappeared, and he has never seen him again. However, when he goes to sleep in his bedroom, he swears that he can hear Zeus inside of the house. When he comes out, there's nothing there. Even when he gets home from work, he swears he can hear Zeus's steps, almost like when he would get excited and run to the door, but nothing is there. He doesn't know if maybe it's just like his memories or if Zeus really is coming to visit him from time to time. But what do you guys think?
I know it's pretty late, but that just means that you can go get you a snack, kick your feet up, rub your feet together, and get ready for story time before you go to sleep. So there's this guy, let's call him Dre, and I know I might be whispering, that's because baby girl's sleeping, I don't want to wake her. Anyways, Dre is Nigerian, but he's a Nigerian that grew up in the hood. And this is Dre's story, this is Dre's submission. Now, Dre was Nigerian, of course, like his parents was from Nigeria, they had, they spoke the language, had the accent and everything. But because Dre grew up in the hood, he wasn't really close to his Nigerian roots. Like, as far as, like, witchcraft and stuff. Of course, he ate the food. Y'all get it. Anyway, Dre started hanging out with the wrong people, right? The wrong crowd from school. And long story short, he started robbing people. He was catching licks left and right. And this is the story that made Dre stop catching licks. One day, Dre went to the park with his friends to play basketball. After they finished playing basketball, they're wrapping it up. Dre's walking back to his car. His friends pull off, but he stayed because he wanted to. So he stayed in the parking lot. He sparked up and he just chilled for a second and he did what he had to do. Now, across the street from the basketball court in the parking lot that he was in was an ATM. And as Dre is about to pull off, this lady just comes out the ATM. And from where Dre was looking, because it's those type of ATMs that's like kind of like glass, she took out a lot of money. So Dre's like, I got me a lick. So boom, Dre put on the shiesty. He put on a black hoodie. Mind you, this was nighttime, so it was dark. Now, I should say that Dre only caught licks off people that are harmless because he doesn't want to harm anybody. He really just want to get some money or some phones or whatever. The lady looked like she's not really gonna fight back. So Dre walks up to her, like in front of her, and stops her because she was walking. And Dre says to the lady, "Hey ma'am, I'm not even gonna lie. If you don't want to get going right now, you gotta give me all that money you just took out." Now, Dre's fully prepared to put up a little fight. He's not really gonna hurt her. But she doesn't say anything. She just stares at him. The stare was a little scary for a second, but he's like, maybe she didn't hear me. He's like, "Ma'am, give me your money." And so the lady is still staring at him. She's not saying anything. She's not running. She ain't fighting. She's just staring at him. And so he pretends like he's about to pull something out of his hoodie. He ain't pulling nothing out. So the lady's like, type shit, and hands him over her bag. He takes the bag. He's like, type shit, and goes to his car. And the whole time he's running towards his car, the lady is just staring at him go. And for a second, he's thinking, yo, is she the feds? So he's like, yeah, I really gotta lay low because she might be the feds. So he goes to the car, he drives off. As he's driving, he looks inside the purse, and the money that he thought was there wasn't there anymore. So he's like, yo, where's that money she just pulled out? I watched her put the money in her purse, but the money's not there. So he's like, all right, bro, this was pointless. So he opens the window as he's driving and he throws the purse out. And as he's driving, there's a bus stop coming up and there's a red light. So he has to stop at the red light. And guess who he sees at the red light? The lady. But that's weird because he's driving. The lady was on foot. He's like, that's impossible. That's impossible that this lady is at this bus stop right now because I left her all the way back there. He's like, all right, whatever. I'm wildin'. Let me go home. He goes home thinking everything's going to be okay. Oh, but no, baby, because over the next few weeks, he's seeing this lady everywhere. Whether it's the corner store, whether it's Walmart, whether it's school, he is seeing her everywhere. And the thing is, she's not saying anything. He would literally just see her walk past and just look at him. He told his friends about it, but his friends don't believe him because whenever he sees this lady and he tries to show his friends, nobody's there. It gets so bad that he's seeing this lady in his dreams. At first, it was some dreams, and then it was like every other day, and then it was every night. Now, mind you, he's going through this, and he's Nigerian, and as much as he wants to tell his parents, that means he would have to tell his parents that he robbed somebody. At this point, this is getting bad because it's about a month now, and it's to the point where sometimes he'll see her in mirrors. He's talking about this to his friends all of the time, to the point where it's starting to be concerning. Like, his friends are starting to be worried about him. Of course, he wasn't hanging with the right crowd, so they kind of like stopped being friends with him. And so the fact that they stopped being friends with him made him crash out even more because his life is falling apart now and he doesn't even know how to explain it. And whenever he tries to explain it, he sounds crazy and nobody believes him. So at this point, he's really crashing out. It's so bad to the point where he's trying to keep himself up because he does not want to keep dreaming about her. And so it got to a point where he's like talking to her, but not her. He's like questioning her, like, what do you want from me? I'm sorry. I will never rob again. And this would happen in the most random places because he's losing his mata. So one day his family noticed that he ain't been out his room in like 2 days. So his siblings decided to go check up on him. And when they went in his room, that young man was in bad shape. And he's like blabbering and nobody's understanding what he's saying. He is acting unhinged. So his siblings went to his parents and his parents came in the room. Ultimately, Dre was so bad that his parents ended up having to take him to a psych ward. When he got to the psych ward, they gave him medicine to sleep. So now he's like sleeping a long time and he's seeing this lady. So whenever he wakes up, it's even worse. Finally, he works up the courage to tell his parents what happened. And so the moment he told his parents the full story, they understood. They immediately signed him out of that psych ward and they sent him back to the village. They booked him a flight with the quickness. When he got back to Nigeria with his parents, they had to do a lot of work on him, like a lot. And come to find out, he ended up robbing a lugau, a witch. That witch's magic was pretty freaking strong because it took a lot to get it all off of him. He had to alternate between church and root work. After a couple of months of being in Nigeria, he was finally back to normal. Dre says he will never, ever in his life catch another lick ever again. Dre told me to tell the YNs nowadays that it's all fun and games until you have to deal with something spiritually. You can't fight your way out of that one. You can't shoot your way out of that one. Anyways, make sure you guys are following me on Instagram in case they take this app away. Yeah, because how else are you going to get your stories? Exactly, you get it.